Preschool is built around play, but when kids graduate to elementary, the emphasis often shifts towards more traditional forms of teaching and learning. That's not the case here. These kids are traveling across San Francisco to Rooftop, a public school that's become famously successful because play is central to the curriculum. Rooftop has some 600 students in grades K through 8. They form a close and very supportive community.
Hey, how did she get here?
Today, in our activity, you are going to be using all sorts of different kinds of math, really stretching your math cells in your brain, okay? So
Amy Whitcomb teaches 4th grade at Rooftop. She's part educator and part stand-up comedian.
Don't be surprised. Since you and your partner at the end of the activity get to eat them, I don't want you leaning down on the table and licking the M&Ms in the middle of the activity. I don't want you juggling the M&Ms. Okay, you hear what I'm saying? All right.
Amy teaches math as a series of games and competitions. Today, how many red M&Ms are there in a packet, expressed as a percentage of the whole?
What would my fraction be of yellow M&Ms?
The general philosophy that I have is if it's not fun, they're not going to want to be there, they're not going to want to learn. So I try to be as playful with them as possible. Kids always say, Miss Whitcomb, you're not a grown-up, you're really a kid. And I say, no, I'm a grown-up. But I've kept the kid in me, the kid's inside.
No.
I just remember the most important teachers in my life were teachers who had a playful component. They were still strict, they were still firm, they were fair, but they always made learning fun.
Hey, it's a guy.
Play is freeing for kids and for me, and it just releases stress, and it lets the creative juices flow, so you almost don't know what's going to happen next.
Are there any questions about that? Because Miss Melnett and I do not get our own bag. So please send your leftovers to us.
It allows them to be creative, to think outside the box. And I think if you have that ability, nothing can stop you.
We're now getting the research that shows that the children who have more play in their classroom time, more playfulness as well as more play, they end up being more motivated at their studies.
Miss Whitcomb, she makes everything fun, and because she likes being with kids.
She's real nice, real good. She gives us lots of time. She's not very strict. She acts kind of childish, and she's fun to be with. She's just fun to be with.
At recess, the excitement of play is given free rein. Play is a way of expressing strong emotions in a safe context. Boys compete and blow off steam. It's an alternative to getting genuinely angry. Girls often play complex ritual games to strengthen their sense of belonging. There are deep play traditions in a schoolyard.
The big political issue today is why should we keep these playgrounds going? Because there's always a certain amount of danger, a certain amount of aggression and so forth goes on in these playgrounds, and many people feel that that's a bad influence and we want to get rid of aggression in everyday life. What they forget is that the playground is a really honest culture of children. Schools that are stopping that and are now just having organized games all the time are really depriving children of a basic way to learn how to be a social being.
Let's get the rhythm of the head.
Are you guys ready today?
Yeah!
There you are.
David Skinner runs the sports program at Rooftop. He sees organized games as a form of play that not only builds skills, but builds confidence as well.
Oh, nice job, Marissa.
When I play, and I'm in what we call a zone, it's so hard to describe. I mean, your blood's pumping. You know, I get the little bumps on my arms, and I mean, the sweat builds up on my forehead, and you know, I just know that no matter what happens, that I can accomplish anything I want. To me, it's like music in my head. It's just a rhythm, and I see children going that too. When they're in that zone, they're just going, and they're just going, and they're motivating, they're clapping, they're pumping, they're jumping, and they're smiling. And we could be losing, but we know that we have that opportunity to get back into the game.
One. That's no bases, two. Three.
Organized games, playful techniques in the classroom, and freedom in the schoolyard have helped make Rooftop one of California's most successful elementary schools.
Well, I'm a firm believer in play because it's the child at its best, not only creatively but intellectually. There's a flow there, and that allows them to be more relaxed, that allows them to be more open to information coming in. We believe here that creativity is extremely important to our success. We this year scored #1 in reading and #2 in mathematics, district-wide. And if you disaggregate the data by 6th through 8th grade, we were #1 in mathematics by at least 20 points.
I don't know if you could ever prove that the techniques of teachers like me increase scores. But I think you could prove that having fun while you're learning is going to teach kids that learning is fun. And if you have that lifelong love of learning, you can do anything.
For many years, teachers have tried to integrate play into the learning experience, largely because they know that learning by doing is the most effective learning. If what we're doing feels like play, so much the better.
You guys, isn't this really weird?
San Francisco's Exploratorium has taken this idea about as far as it can go. It's a museum that concerns itself with science, art, and human perception. Everything here is presented as an opportunity to play. This is learning as adventure, as exploration, as a chance to perform or solve a puzzle or play a game.
Well, it's a place, I think, where children and grown-ups and people of all ages can come and sort of rediscover their childhood, rediscover the innocence of putting their hands in things and playing around, and then from that play, discovering something that's unexpected. And that's really the first part of what science is discovering the unexpected. And you really only do that through play.
Long before the word interactive was fashionable, the people at the Exploratorium realized that by playing with things, experimenting with them, people learned how to think about them.
I think the classic museum, the museum that I would think of as the artifact museum, comes out of a philosophy where learning is something we do to somebody. You know, we come in as empty slates, and somebody has to fill us with all this information. So you go to the classic museum and you look at things and you read cards that describes what these things are, and somehow that's supposed to teach us something. And a museum like this stems from the philosophy that education is something not that's done to you, but that you do to yourself. And you do that through play, through touching and feeling and discovering.
Every kid understands the object of this game. Who can keep a disc spinning the longest? But in the course of playing, they're also discovering some of the basic laws of motion, or learning about centrifugal force by experiencing how it feels. Who doesn't like bubbles, especially when they're as big as a picture window? This experiment attracts as many adults as kids.
At its deepest level, this is the exhibit about surface tension and bubbles. It's also about scientific discovery. It's also about taking a very close look at something so simple, bubbles, and noticing a lot of interesting things about the bubbles, that they're iridescent, that you can pass your hand through the bubble if your hand is wet, but you can't if your hand is dry. Why is that? So it's not only about sort of the deeper content of science, about surface tension and molecules and so forth, but it's also about the process of science, about making an aha discovery and then conducting experiments to try to figure out what's going on.
You bought it out, you went to the thrift store?
The staff here suspect that this is how real discovery often happens in the real world. Scientists speculate, they experiment, they notice strange results and say, aha. They play first, and then the theories get written.
I think inside all scientists, there's a 9-year-old child. What am I saying? There's probably a 3-year-old child inside every scientist. Because if you look at 3-year-olds, they're touching things, they're putting things in their mouth, they're seeing what's hot and cold and sharp and all this sort of thing, and investigating the world. And that's really all a scientist does at the core of things, is sort of, you know, poke and pull and try things out and make these sort of aha discoveries the way a 3-year-old does about the world around them. When red, green, all right, let's see how we are doing. Red,
Playful
green,
experiments help reveal the natural world. For example, white light is made up of red, green, and blue light. Cover up one of the colored light sources, and the light on the wall isn't white anymore.
You cover the green, let's see what happens. Watch the shadows.
It turns out that a lot of scientists in the real world do think in a playful way about the universe. Mitchell Cotter is a noted physicist who works on the properties of light.
Play from infancy onward is an essential ingredient. You have to be testing, looking, searching. That's what stimulates mental neural development. And in fact, without it, you don't get the development. So play, in our language, in our common understanding, has taken on a pejorative quality. It's bad. That's a sort of puritanical view. Play is not good work. I would say play is the highest form of work. And it is also essential for human development.
Some people think a playful attitude toward the universe facilitates discovery and understanding.
What if we just had 2 of the colors? Would they make white?
Brian Swim is a cosmologist who considers how and why we see the world the way we do.
Let's turn off one. Which one you want to turn
We
off?
tend to think of play as being something that just children do. And so the idea of returning to play or making play central for a civilization seems to be involved with regression. But I'm talking about play in a different sense. I mean the sense of wonder and the sense of just the thrill of existing. The Chinese philosopher Mencius was asked, what really is civilization about? And his answer was that all of human education is about one thing. It's about recapturing the mind of the child. So it's not a return or a regression. It is rather to recapture that spirit of wonder, that spirit of fascination, that spirit of reverence and awe. It's to recapture that as adults.
Look at that, too. Wow.
The success of the Exploratorium has been built in part on 2 very simple ideas: that science is a great way to maintain our capacity for wonder, and that play, not necessity, is the true mother of invention.
Pull that Marlin in, baby.